The Mario Luigi series has finally gotten its first new entry in over 9 years thanks to the release of the newest game on the Nintendo Switch, Mario Luigi Brothership. To say this was one of my most anticipated games of the year would be an understatement. I mean, I was ecstatic when Mario Luigi Superstar Saga was revealed for Nintendo Switch Online back in 2022, and when Brothership was announced in the June 2024 Nintendo Direct, I was in utter disbelief. As we got closer and closer to the game's release, I became more and more excited to finally get my hands on the game. But then a week before the game was released, the reviews came out, and they were mixed. We have outlets like The Gamer giving the game praises and a score of 4.5 out of 5, and then IGN calling the game a disappointment and giving it a 5 out of 10, a lower score than Paper Mario Sticker Star, the worst Mario RPG. These differing reviews across the board got many skeptical about the game. Was it going to be good? Was it going to be bad? Or was it going to be somewhere in between? That's what I wanted to look at today, as within the first week of the game's release, I played it from start to finish with a final playtime of just under 40 hours. With that being said, I'm the biggest snub on YouTube, Christendo, and let's look at the hits and misses of Mario Luigi Brothership. Let me establish what I mean by hits and misses before we start talking about the game. When I say hits and misses of the game, I'm more so talking about the goods and bads, but just in a more fancy wording. So the hits are going to be what I find good and or enjoyable about the game, whereas the misses are what I don't like and problems I have with the game. With that established, let's start with the hits of Mario Luigi Brothership. Starting off the hits, I have to say this game has an amazing art style. One of my favorite smaller things about the Mario Luigi series is the box art. I don't know how to really explain it, but something about the white background outside of Partners in Time with hand-drawn renders of the bros and whoever else is aboard to the game, I really love that. Now take that art, make an entire Mario Luigi game look like that, and you have Brothership. The world looks really nice with a good sense of visual variety. The animations of the characters you meet and enemies you encounter are great. All around, this game is such a treat to look at, and honestly, I think it's the best looking game in the series. Another thing I enjoyed about this game is the soundtrack. Unfortunately, Yoko Shimomura, the composer of all the Mario and Luigi games up to the Bowser's Inside Story remake, didn't return for the soundtrack of this game, but the new composer, Hideki Sakamoto, who also composed the main theme of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, absolutely cooked with the soundtrack. The battle music, while not as good as, say, Superstar Saga's iconic battle theme, is still great, which I'm thankful about, especially since that's gonna be the song you hear the most in the game. A few other ones I want to mention include Heat Freeze Island, Lotta Coins Island, Twisty Island, and while not being in the final boss theme in this game goes hard. All around, this game has a great catchy soundtrack, and I definitely see myself listening to it on YouTube, I mean the Nintendo Music app, when it eventually comes to the service. The combat in this game is also the best in this series, at least in my opinion. Being able to use both the bros together to do normal attacks, like jumps and hammer pounds to make them stronger, is such a welcome addition, and really shows off the brothership of Mario and Luigi. Enemies also have very unique attacks, and there's points where some enemies will work together to do more powerful attacks, which leads to an insane variety of attacks to master avoiding, which is incredibly satisfying. The bros attacks as well are super fun to learn, and while there are a few I really do suck at, in general, we get a nice mixture of old and new bros attacks that are well designed. All in all, as I've mentioned before, I think this game's combat is the best in the entire series. The worlds, or in the case of this game, islands, are great as well. Sure, we have a few of the basic themes like grass, desert, ice, and whatnot, but we also have a few worlds and locations we don't see often, like a bustling city or a world fully revolved around a maze, to name a few. The missions you have to complete in most of the worlds are fun as well. Sure, your main objective is to get to the lighthouse of the islands in order to reconnect Concordia, the world the game takes place in, but the missions to get to that point can get super creative, such as having to solve puzzles in order to unlock a door to save individuals being held captive, playing detective, and solving the mystery of stolen items on one of the islands. All in all, for the most part, the islands you'll be exploring in the game are well designed. There won't really be a point at which they feel like they overstay their welcome. I don't know if this is going to be a hot take or not, but I actually really enjoyed the story of Brothership. One of IGN's biggest criticism was it having a lackluster story. While I could see this game's story not being for everyone, saying the story is lackluster would make me think that you only played a small portion of the game. I won't lie, the story did kind of start slow. Once you reach a certain point into the game or are introduced to the villains, get an idea of what the motivations are, the game's story picks up significantly. And on the topic of the story, the final act is insane. Without going into spoilers, just when you think you beat the game or near completion, the game hits you with such a crazy twist, and oh my god, was I in disbelief. From there, there's a few more things you had to do before the finale, and once you get there, holy moly was it trippy. Just what happens in the last hour or so before the final boss was insane. I can't really speak much on it without spoiling what happens, but when I say that the last bit of the game has some of the craziest twists, jaw-dropping moments, and best cutscenes in the entire series, just know I'm not kidding. This game does not hold back with this final act, and by the end, I was in disbelief as to what I just played. It was that good. I talked about the hits of the game, but no game is perfect, so now let's talk about the misses of Brothership. A good few of these will more than likely be nitpicks I have of the game, but there's a few things that I do think affect the experience, and when I talk about those, I'll make sure I make it known that it's not just a nitpick. Speaking of nitpicks, very minor thing here, but as a person who has been playing the Mario and Luigi series since Bowser's Inside Story on the Nintendo DS, this bugs me. Why can't I select Luigi's attacks with B in battle? At this point, having Mario set to A and Luigi set to B is a staple of the series. So when I battled with both of the bros for the first time, I was confused as to why I wasn't able to select Luigi's attacks with B. I did eventually get used to this as I played through the game, but this change was so weird to me, and even up to the end of the game, there'd be times where my muscle memory of the rest of the series would kick in because I tried using B to select with Luigi, to forget it's for Luigi, and would fail an attack because I thought I was attacking as Mario instead. On the topic of Luigi, why did he have to be AI controlled in this game? Part of the charm with the series is being able to control both of the bros simultaneously. Mario controlled with A and Luigi with B, you know the drill. For some reason, they decided that Luigi should be automatically controlled, and that you can guide him to do things by pressing the L button. This change just confuses me. Sure, it may make the game a bit more accessible as you only had to worry about using Mario at most points in time. There's also points in which you had to actively fight Luigi in order to proceed in the game, and I don't know, I'm just not the biggest fan of this change. Another nitpick on Luigi, this one is about Luigi logic. I want to make it clear, it's not about me hating Luigi logic, I love the gimmick. It makes for some fun, creative boss fights and gives some good humor in the game, which I'll touch on soon. My complaint here though is about the animation. Not about the animation itself, I think it's fantastic, very charming, it fits Luigi's character well. It's just the fact that it's like every time that there's no direct solution to a puzzle, it seems this animation appears. I like the animation, but after the first few times, the charm just starts wearing off, and I wish I could skip the animation. I don't know why, but you can fast forward every other bit of dialogue or cutscene in the game, but when it comes to Luigi logic, that just isn't an option. I don't know, just not even being able to make this animation go by faster kind of annoys me. This shows up so much in the game, and with that, I just wish that there was a way to make it pass by faster, as it just puts everything to a halt for a good 10 seconds. Alright, onto some actual criticisms I have towards the game. I want to make it clear, humor is subjective. I understand that my humor may not be the same as everyone else's, but I don't feel the humor in this game is as great as some of the others in the series. It could also be an aging thing, but it just didn't click the same for me. I feel a lot of the jokes in the game boil down to a few different things. Now wait, your companion in the game saying he's not a pig, the main villain forgetting or not saying the names of characters correctly, and some Luigi logic segments having Luigi do some wacky things that are just so random I can't help but laugh at. But when it comes to Snout's jokes on not being a pig, or the main villain calling characters the wrong names, I just didn't find it super funny, outside of when the main villain called Mario and Luigi Marco and Luisa. I don't know, that just made me laugh for some reason. There's also the grampy turnips you find on islands that will talk for ages and end with a bad joke that leads to silence, but those are bad jokes, and yes, they are purposely bad, but it doesn't make them any funnier. To me, the humor in this game was really hit or miss, so I think it fits in the misses category. The performance of the game and the load times could be pretty bad at points. Starting with performance, I wouldn't say it's like the Pokemon Switch games. For the most part, the game runs fine, but there are some parts where there's really noticeable frame dips and stuttering. I can maybe see this getting a possible fix in a patch or something, but I wouldn't fully count on that. In terms of load times, they can be pretty bad, I won't lie. When you enter and complete a battle, or when you switch between islands or enter a new area, you'll get a load screen. That's typical for a game, sure, but these load screens can be up to 15 seconds long, and this can happen every time you battle, which since this is an RPG, you'll be doing a lot. I wouldn't say that this is a game breaker, but I'd be lying if I said a good amount of time in a playthrough isn't spent on waiting for load screens. The last thing I really want to mention about this game is that it starts off really slow. I know I said that the game has a pretty great story, but I won't lie, the first 3 or so hours were quite a slog. It took until hour 3 to even fight the first boss and get the first bros attacks. It just took me a bit to actually get invested in the game. I am happy that I gave the game a chance from that though. I think that after that first bit, the game is great, but it's unfortunate the game wasn't fully great from the start. Now that wraps up the hits or misses of Mario Luigi Brothership. Was the game a hit or was it a miss? In my humble opinion, despite the game's shortcomings, I think this game is easily a hit. While it does suffer from a pretty slow start, frame rate issues, and some not so great humor, as a package, the game offers interesting worlds and characters, a great art style and music, a good story, and the best combat in the entire Mario and Luigi series. So if I were to tell you whether or not you should get this game, if you're a fan of the series, definitely pick this up. It may not be Bowser's Inside Story good, but I think it's up there next to Superstar Saga for me. And if you haven't played any games of the series, I would still consider picking this one up if you can. And I think it's the best original Mario RPG on the Switch, not counting remakes. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel as it helps out a ton. And if you want to see another video made by me, there's a video on screen now where I look at the question how many Mario Kart 8 Deluxe tracks have an 8 in them, which I think you'll enjoy. With that being said, I'm the biggest nub on YouTube, Christendo, signing off, and goodbye Nub Nation.